SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
Tired of your old tractor crying when it sees a hill? Or coughing more than Uncle Earl in pollen season? Trade up now at Sid's Trading Company. Coyote and TYM tractors so mean, they'd plow a cornfield in reverse, uphill. Get her did at Sid's. SidsTrading.com.
This is Gerard Gibert, and thank you for listening to MidDays here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
MidDays with Gerard Gibert is on the air. MidDays with Gerard Gibert is powered by C-Spire. Power your home or business with C-Spire Fiber. To learn more, visit supertalk.fm/C-Spire. C-Spire Fiber powers SuperTalk Mississippi. Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. Hello. You're listening to MidDays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to MidDays, SuperTalk Mississippi. I'm your host, Gerard Gibert, along with Rhino in the Element Wealth Studio, guiding you through the middle of your day with facts, fodder, and fine music on this
Friday Eve.
Well, I take it you didn't win the Powerball last night.
No, I actually made a bet with myself that if nobody won it, I would buy one for the Saturday drawing.
Okay. What are we going up to now? $1.7 billion? Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Which I believe puts it in the top 15 highest?
Yeah.
I don't know that it's cracked the top 10 just
It's
yet.
the third highest in Powerball history.
Right.
But of the multi-state games, Mega Millions, I think you're right. It may even have cracked the top 10. I bet it does in the next day or so.
Quite possibly.
Because we got a few days, and of course, you know, the jackpot rises as ticket sales increase. It's something that certainly is noticeable. I think I shared that yesterday when we look at the weekly sales reports.
I was way off. It's number 3.
Well, I thought it was a 3 in Powerball, but between Powerball and Mega Millions, I think there have been...
Mega Millions, the highest one they've had is $1.6 billion.
Okay, so third overall then. All right. Well,
and just behind number 2 from 2023.
Yeah.
So that's the one it'll overtake. It might take another drawing without a winner to reach number 1 at $2.04 billion.
Yeah.
From 2022.
Well, it's a big one, that's for sure. 33 consecutive drawings have not produced a winner following last evening's drawing and results. When's the next one? Saturday, right?
Saturday.
Yeah. Something that I'll pass on to folks that are lottery players, that there's an app that I found early on when we were building out the state lottery. It's called Lotto. You can download it at the App Store. I highly recommend it. And here's why, Rhino. It's one of those apps that when you click it, you get exactly what you want on the opening page, on the splash page. You specify your state because the first thing you see, of course, are the multi-state games, the current drawings and the value and the of each jackpot, and then the next drawing, Mega Millions, Powerball, and then below that you get Lotto America, and then the state drawdown games, such as Match 5, Cash 4, Midday Evening, Cash 3, Midday Evening, Cash Pop, Midday. So all that on one screen. Everything related to drawdown games in one nice, succinct, compact, cool app screen here. Lotto, Lotto. Again, you tell it what your state is, and as soon as you open it at the very top, you'll see Yeah, Mississippi. And you can select other states, by the way, if you're playing in other states and you want to know the results of their state-sponsored, operated drawdown games. But the first thing you're going to get are the two multi-state games, Mega Millions and Powerball. So I'm looking at the numbers in the last drawing, which was last night. 3, 16, 29, 61, 69 with the Powerball, the red Powerball of 22, Power Play as it is called. Yeah, that was for $1.44 billion. No jackpot winners, 15 match 5 winners. And it shows the states. I can't remember exactly what match 5 will win you, but it's a bunch. And then the next drawing, it shows Saturday, September 6th, at currently that jackpot, $1.7 billion, as you indicated, with $770 the cash value.
The match 5 and the Magnolia State as of today. Where'd it go? It just went away. There it is. 90,000.
Okay. So 15 of those. Man. But just something to pass on, a little tidbit. Jim in the Delta says, why do they not allow purchasing tickets electronically? Just too big of a risk? The simple, honest answer is, Jim, that's the way the law was designed. The Mississippi Lottery Act. And I don't think we would have passed the law, honestly, had electronic remote purchasing, mobile purchasing of tickets had been included. I don't think it would have passed. In 2018, could we modify that? Yeah, absolutely. And some states have. And that's gotten more sophisticated, more powerful, and more popular as far as what you can do from a mobile lottery perspective. The big issue is that when one has to stop at a retailer to buy a lottery or visit a retailer to buy a lottery ticket, the retailer does benefit from that. They get 6% of the gross sales. That is in accordance with the law and the contract. And also, what has been found through extensive and repeated research is that stores, retailers that sell lottery tickets see sales increase. That one of the main measurements there is just the average amount of a transaction. And when they're also retailing lottery tickets, they find that the average amount of the transactions they process in the stores, in the retailers, increases. That's just, I think, common sense stands to reason. There's a lot of people pull in here. The Powerball's $1.7 billion, right? I want to go buy a couple of tickets. Oh, while I'm here, I'll have one of these, one of those. But that's fine. That's the way it works. And so if we had mobile lottery sales, some of that retail traffic would likely diminish somewhat.
To play devil's advocate, I would bet that there are at least a few sales that have been lost.
To agree.
Having to wait in line while someone scratches their scratcher or can't pick their numbers.
Well, I think it's absolutely true.
And that sale would not have been lost if we had it available via mobile.
I think that's totally true, that you would just see an increase in the overall volume of sales if it were just instant and in your hand.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think there's any question about that. Whether or not that would have a negative impact on the retailers, I don't know. But that's basically the justification for it. That's the rationale behind it, if you will. So now I will tell you, when we were putting together the budget for this thing and the business plan for this thing, once the law passed, talking about the board here, we thought we'd have 500 retailers. That's what we estimated. Last I checked, Rhino, it's like 1,700. I had no idea. We missed it. We were conservative in our estimates. We just didn't see that much interest among retailers. We were wrong in a good way, but it's a whole lot better to create the business plan and the budget on the basis of, a conservative outlook than it is, oh, yeah, we're going to knock it dead, blow it out, and we're going to have 2,000 retailers. And I can also share this with you. Our first budget, we thought $250 million of annual gross sales. I don't think there's been a year since the lottery has been in existence in Mississippi where the revenue has been under 400. It averages about 8 million of sales a week. Last week, I think I shared, because the Powerball jackpot was way up there, it was 12 million. What do you want to bet that this week it's 15 million? With this, if not more. The biggest, as I recall, the biggest week in our history was when we had a big jackpot. It may have been a Mega Millions, and it was during the COVID era. And it was a $17 million week. Double what the standard average is for lottery sales in a week. We're stepping aside for a break. Corley Mullins, Director of Alumni Affairs with Delta State at 10:35, and the Speaker of the House, Jason White, at 12:05.
Friday nights just...
This segment of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Let's do this.
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Let's go.
That got you through a cloudy day. When the stars ain't shining bright, you feel like you've lost your way. When the candle light of home burns so very far away. Now you gotta
We're back with you in the Element Well studio. Okay, we had band practice last night, the house band. Many thanks to Rankin County Supervisor Sid Scarborough. He's very active on the hot rod racing circuit, and as most of those folks do, he has a really nice shop, a racing shop where he works on his vehicles, and he was nice enough to sort of clean out some room there, and it's air conditioned. I mean, it's nice, like a lot of those shops are. You got to do that kind of stuff. There's a few that do it under the shade tree, but not many if you're going to compete.
Well, I mean, there's a lot that it's just a fan, maybe a swamp cooler, but
this is
I
air
wouldn't say
conditioned.
It's common to have an air-conditioned shop for private use.
I mean, and it's really nice. It's finished nice, and his parts all over the place, and a lot of his awards and banners and things like that. Really impressive. And it's out in Florence. Really nice property he has out there. He was kind enough to allow us to practice there. We were unable to access the Trade Mart, which is where we've been practicing. And we sounded pretty good, I have to tell you. I thought we even sounded better than we did at the Neshoba County Fair. We're just starting to hit our stride, I guess, a little bit. Added a couple of new tunes to the set. Representative Lance Varner, that was his request. He will be handling the lead vocals on those two songs. And first time we've ever practiced them. Honestly, didn't go bad. Now, I have to admit, I bring my turtle box, Rhino, and I'll crank the tunes up. We all listen and try to figure out, our parts. And if we think something's not right when we play it, we'll stop. I'll crank it up on the turtle box. We'll listen again, and we go back to it. But Supervisor Sid Scarborough, if you're listening, man, thanks. And you know what else he did, Rhino? He fed us, man. He grilled hamburgers for us. We don't deserve that, by the way. Oh, but a lot of fun that is. We got a couple of gigs scheduled, 3 actually coming up. One you may want to be aware of is Representative Varner's Barn Burner, the second edition. He held one back during the session, at the end of the session this past spring. But we're having a fall version of that, and it is expected to draw a big crowd. And it's a really nice place, by the way. It's a nice barn, a big pavilion, and a big stage in front of the barn there. And we'll be set up on the stage entertaining the folks. Looking forward to that for sure. So yesterday we were talking about unions and the decline of union membership and popularity in this country. And remember that I referenced the longshoremen who were fighting for a very egregious contract and got it. Honestly, they compromised on a few things with the big longshore operators, dock workers as they are called, and mainly you see this along the East Coast, New York, Virginia, New Jersey, etc., those ports which are highly unionized. 45,000 longshoremen, 36 East Coast ports, a few on the Gulf Coast. And you remember they went on strike, and we were all concerned about how that might affect supply chains. And it did delay some stuff a little bit, but fortunately a contract was worked out, and they got back on it. But now they're suing some of the operators at Virginia ports for what we were discussing yesterday. They're trying to automate and get more efficient. This just is so crazy to me. So in this article that I'm looking at, where I found out about this, by the way, this was published in the New York Sun. It's one of the subscriptions I enjoy. A more conservative slant on the news and politics in the Empire State, if you will, and the city of New York, which has gone totally crazy wacko. But I'm looking at a line of these longshoremen. I can't even comprehend this. It's they're on strike, and it's a line. And this was in October. And this line features hundreds. Well, they're holding a sign, a pre-printed, professionally printed sign. Fight automation, save jobs. ILA demands job security. Fight automation. I can't even comprehend that. Don't you get more efficient? Don't you save money? Don't you improve the quality of service and produce more value for society? You got to pay me. Is that the message here? That's what I thought. This is ridiculous. So they're back at it again because I just thought this was timely. An article that comes overnight discussing this situation in Virginia. We just talked about it yesterday. And these operators in Virginia, these shippers, are saying, yeah, we're going to do some stuff to improve efficiencies using automation. And now they're threatening. No, you're not. And when we found out, wait, you got 3 people making $120,000 a year to check stuff off on a clipboard. Essentially, that's what they're doing. 3, not 1, 3. You don't even need 1. That's the whole point here.
Well, it's 3 because it's 8-hour shifts and it's a 24-hour job. You're manning the gate. Stuff coming in all hours of day and night. You got to have somebody at the gate.
Okay, I got you. Oh, my gosh. Well, this is just like ass backwards to me. It just offends my sensibilities of always thinking about how can we make that better? How can we make it faster, quicker, cheaper, more accurate? All the above. God gave us the brain to do that with, right? That's what I believe He expects.
I guarantee you those longshoremen would be really upset if they had to hang their clothes on the clothesline and couldn't use the efficiency of a modern dryer.
That is very true. Totally true. It's the height of hypocrisy if you think about it. You know they're all using stuff that's automated. We all do. So what? Man, oh man. Meanwhile, you were talking about Putin and Xi Jinping and their little hot mic moment. That's getting a lot of attention, as you've probably seen.
Yeah,
Tell them about that.
It sounds like something you would see on a AI-generated Facebook meme sent out by some 70-year-old or something. But no, this was a hot mic moment apparently captured by Bloomberg, or at least they're the ones that got their hands on the video with the audio. And it's Xi Jinping and Putin and Kim Jong-un trying to kind of butt in, but they're ignoring him, leading this long line of communists.
Yeah.
And idiots. And sycophants.
Exactly right.
But Xi and Putin are discussing how 70 is like the new childhood. That you're not even really fully grown at 70 now. And through advances in modern medicine and organ transplants, they plan to live to be at least 150, if not just forever.
Now, I'll admit, it's intrigued me for years. They're futurists. I'm sure you've seen this. You keep up with this kind of stuff the way I do. That do predict we may get to a point at some time in the future where we will pick our death date. I've seen that. Now, I don't know if that's a reality or will ever be a reality, I should say. But the point they're making is
there's a lot of literature on the dangers of it.
They're absolutely right. It's a scary thought, honestly. I know one thing: it breaks Social Security, wouldn't it? That'd make
well,
you
in
think.
Order to get to that point in a society, we would have to be technologically advanced enough to where money probably wouldn't even be a thing.
Wouldn't be an
anymore.
issue. That's totally right. In fact, I got a story to share by some folks who think.
Which tells you how likely it is to happen in our lifetime.
That's true, exactly. Who think that we could possibly fully eliminate crime using some novel technology. More on that. But coming up after the break, it's Corley Mullins from Delta State.
Middays with Gerard Gibert. It is on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
I got me a brand new car, waiting in the driveway, shining like a bright new star. I've been wishing on it every day to take me away.
We are back with you in the Element Wealth studio. Thanks so much for joining us. We welcome now Corley Mullins, Director of Alumni Affairs, Delta State University. Hey, Corley, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so tell us about the 40th Annual Pig Pickin Festival. What's that all about?
So pig picking is a much loved tradition here at Delta State. We kick off the football season. Well, it started as an actual picking of a pig and a big barbecue. Hugh Ellis Walker, who was over the Alumni Association at the time, he got the rest of the staff out. They picked a pig and they invited alumni out to Shoemate, where we used to tailgate, to eat and hang out and tailgate before the game. And it became a tradition that 40 years later, it's bigger than it's ever been.
40 years. That's incredible. So for it to endure and persevere for that long must mean that a lot of people really enjoy it, that it's a popular event.
It's huge. I feel like it's bigger than homecoming for Delta State, which is hard for non-Delta State people to understand. But if you've ever been to pig picking, you get it.
Right. Well, it looks like it's going to be a big deal. So lots of alumni show up for this, right, specifically for this. And then, of course, you got students, their families as well, and you got folks in the community that also attend and participate.
Yep. And then we also, in addition to all the tailgating, we have an MBN sanctioned barbecue competition going on at the same time, right there at the park.
Gotcha. Well, looks like a big deal. So is this done in conjunction with a football game as well?
Yes. So we'll have a football game at 6 o'clock Saturday night. The park will open for tailgating 12 Saturday. We'll have food vendors out there. We'll be selling barbecue and alumni merch. And so tailgating will last all afternoon, and then at 6 o'clock, kickoff.
Okay. Well, that sounds super exciting. So are there some other activities that occur besides the food?
Yeah, we've got a full schedule. So, like I said, that barbecue competition is happening. So we've got 37 cook teams coming in to compete. That's Friday and Saturday. And then in addition to that, Saturday morning, we've got the Coach Bill Marchant golf tournament at the country club. The Delta State cheerleaders have a mini camp for elementary kids. There will be out at the Grammy Museum porch, there's Balance Fitness's Fit Beat series, Pig Pickin Pilates. So that's really fun if you want to get a little exercise in. Phi Mu sorority is having their annual bunco tournament. Then out at the park, we'll have a cornhole tournament as well. There are some specific tailgates happening. The Office of Admissions is having a tailgate for potential students. So if you know anybody who's interested in coming to Delta State and wants to experience like Delta State at its best, invite them to come out to that tailgate. Some of the other colleges and departments are going to have tailgates as well. So that's a great place to get to meet some professors and find out more about different programs. Then we're going to have the pep rally with the marching band and the cheerleaders. And it's really sweet. The girls that participate in the cheer camp that morning get to do the pep rally with the Delta State cheerleaders. And my daughter, for instance, is so pumped about it. It's really special for them to get to do that. Delta Music Institute will have 2 bands out on the main stage performing during the afternoon. Old School Review and Delta Rocks will both be out there. And then the last thing we do before kickoff is have our MBN awards ceremony where the best of the cook teams get presented with awards and big fat checks.
Yeah, very cool. I mean, it just sounds like a lot of activities for a lot of different people of all ages and getting them on the campus and involved, certainly with the university. Just kind of builds that sort of family atmosphere that you look for in a university environment.
I agree. That's the big thing about the Alumni Association. We're more than just alumni. We are an outreach to the whole community, to the parents of current students, to friends of the university, and to the family members of alumni. Those could be potential students themselves, or they could just be, spouses and everybody else.
Yeah, sure. How is everything else going at Delta State this year? I haven't talked to Dr. Ennis in a few months, just checking in to see what else is going on. I did talk to A.D. Mike Kennison not too long ago, talking about some events they had. Had a big event with a big speaker raising some money, as I recall.
Yeah, I didn't get to attend that event, but I heard it went really well. And students are back on campus for the fall semester, and it's so fun to see the college full. And of course, we have Hayes Cooper Center, the elementary school here on campus. And so to me, that even makes it more vibrant. There's a lot going on campus for people who haven't been in a while. Like, they should come visit and see what we've got.
Yeah. So how do you promote this, Corley, this big, the Pig Pickin Festival? Do you reach out and connect somehow and and get information out to your entire alumni base so they're aware of it?
We do. We send out many emails. We have an email list for most of our alumni. And so we send that stuff out starting months in advance. We also use social media, Instagram, Facebook, X, LinkedIn. We're putting it out mostly through Instagram and Facebook. We've started doing reels and stories this year to try to attract more people. Then we also put posters up around town. A lot of our local sponsors have posters up in their businesses, and a lot of it is word of mouth. People know it's going to happen, and so they look for the information and share it.
Yeah, absolutely. So from a financial perspective, is there any news that you're sharing with the alumni group and the alumni community? I know that's been a big concern, or do you kind of let that stay or come from the Dr. Ennis's office and the administration there?
Well, I kind of let them handle that, and I like to let alumni know that we are the Alumni Association for all alumni,
Sure.
and if they're looking for a way to give back, they can always give back to the Alumni Association, because the events and programming and things that the Alumni Association puts on, that's all for alumni and friends, and anyone who attended Delta State counts as an alumni in our book. So
Sure.
We're there for the people, and things are very positive on our end, and we love to meet new people, and I love to talk to them and hear their stories.
Any particular fundraising campaigns that you have going on right now that would be of interest to the alumni?
Well, Pig Pickin itself is a fundraiser.
Okay.
In addition to that big competition, the barbecue competition, where we do get a little bit of that revenue that comes in, but the sponsorships that we have for Pig Pickin, the barbecue ticket sales and merchandise sales, because the Alumni Association itself sells barbecue plates that day. Mississippi Grounds Yo Eddie Barbecue has provided that. And we also sell Pig Pickin t-shirts, and this year we've added a really fun camouflage cap. And we also have some other alumni merch. So a lot of the money that I'm raising, it's through people renewing their memberships, joining the Alumni Association, and purchasing our merchandise.
Yeah. All right. So if folks want to know more about the activities related to Delta State alumni, how would they do that?
I would say for Pig Pickin specifically, visit dsupigpickin.com. And then for more information about the Alumni Association, go to deltastategiving.org, or they can just give me an email, alumni@deltastate.edu, and I will send them whatever information they need.
Is this one of those events, Corley, that invites and attracts your alumni that are scattered throughout really the nation, if not the world, honestly, once they graduate and they are officially an alumnus, and they come back for this kind of a pilgrimage for them?
It is. We don't have any big official reunions that we know of this year. I do know that some of the Tri Delta sorority alumni will be out tailgating, but a lot of times we'll have some of the sports teams or some of the old classes come out and have reunions at Pig Pickin instead of homecoming.
I got you.
Yeah, it really does bring people.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. And that's really, to me, what the Alumni Affairs and the associations ought to be doing, is making things fun for alumni to come back to their alma mater.
Agreed.
Yeah. Appreciate you coming on, Corley. Good luck with the 40th Annual Pig Pickin Festival. That takes place, that's tomorrow at Delta State, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, starting tomorrow night.
Appreciate
Thanks
you
for
coming
having
on.
me.
You bet. We're stepping aside for a break, folks. We're coming right back. Stay with us.
I'm Rex Beck.
Are we going to do this?
Middays with Gerard Gibert
Keep rolling. 3, 2, 1.
on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Well, well, well.
We're back with you in the Element Wealth studio. The C Spire text line wide open, 601-879-4395. Are you thinking about or planning for retirement? Do you have a plan? Go to myelementwealth.com or call 601-957-6006 to let Element Wealth help you find your balance between income growth and guarantees. The funny money down today, below 110,000 now. The Dow was down at the open, but now it is trending upward, up 203 points. The NASDAQ also in the green, up by 90 points, largely driven by something we talked about yesterday, and that is that Google is not going to have to divest itself of its search engine. It was dumb anyhow to require that. The browser, pardon me. It's actually, you're talking about Google now, we're talking about the search engine, not the browser. They don't have a
Chrome.
Yeah, but it's the search engine built into it is what they were looking for. They were looking for them to, you can keep Chrome over here, but the search engine's got to be in a separate company. They felt like that they had an unfair advantage because of that, being built into or kind of standard with the browser. This is so remindful of the browser wars of the 90s. When Netscape got all mad because Microsoft said, oh, by the way, we'll give you a browser in the operating system on a PC. This was before we had smartphones and so forth. And they griped about that, said that was an unfair advantage because back then you had to buy the browser.
A whole separate app.
Yeah, you had to pay Netscape. And, of course, there was also a competitor of theirs called Mosaic. And all that really did was make the Internet usable, honestly. It put an interface, a skin, a shell on the Internet instead of having to use encrypted command line type language, if you will.
The vibrant colors of Prodigy.
Exactly right. And AOL Online and All America Online and all that stuff. So this is kind of a more modern day incident scenario related to that. Looks like that, where you're saying, yeah, this software company's got an unfair advantage because they're incorporating something that we're also trying to make money off of in what has become kind of an industry standard. That being the search engine within the browser or as a standard. And so most people say, yeah, I'm going to use their search engine as part of Chrome, right? Or vice versa. And so the other companies got upset. Bottom line is the DOJ says, okay, Google, you can stay as one company, Alphabet, and all of that can be under that umbrella as opposed to divesting of that. I thought it was dumb to start with and really was not grounded on any logic or anytime you have those kinds of situations, it's all about what's in the best interest of the customer, the consumer. And in this case, how could you say that that's not in the best interest of the consumer, the way it presently is structured, if they were to be separate? No value in that. I don't think it would change anything, honestly. So, but the fact
people would still ignore Bing search no matter what.
Correct. That's exactly right. It's one of those things that, okay.
Although it's gotten better, it's still just.
It is better, but.
Why?
Yeah, it's exactly right.
Like, it gives you stuff that you're like, why did you show me that?
Yeah, I agree. It's one of those things where the market has spoken, and it does look like, yeah, they have an unfair advantage because they just dominate the market so significantly by a long shot.
That's the ultimate irony in the old browser wars is Netscape got really upset that they introduced Internet Explorer, and once the Internet became kind of a part of everyday life, people realized just how bad Internet Explorer really was.
Very true. Netscape, of course, with some
Netscape
roots.
just toughed it out.
That's exactly right. Some roots here to Mississippi with Jim Barksdale serving as the original CEO. I believe is listed as a co-founder as well. So I'm trying to think of the individual's name, the technical guy that did make a fortune off of that. I can see him, but I can't remember his name. I hadn't said it. Hadn't had the need to state it in a while. Mark something or another? Seems like
Andreessen, yeah.
Yeah, Mark Andreessen, yeah. Swedish, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Was he Swedish?
He's American.
Okay, he's American. For some
Born
reason,
in Cedar Falls, Iowa.
Okay. Well, that sounds like a German name, Swedish name, Swiss name?
Swedish or Swiss.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know why
Maybe
I thought.
Dutch.
Yeah, could be. I don't know why I thought there was like a more direct connection, but that's fine. Mark Andreessen, yeah, he made a fortune off that, but it was brilliant. But honestly, without what they did there, you'd have to agree, creating an interface, a skin to make it usable for the average person, would have gotten to where it is today, no doubt. It's time for Fox News, Super Talk News. Coming back, Speaker of the House Jason White at 12:05.
Hour of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by the Mississippi Business Journal. Visit msbusinessjournal.com. Scott Coopwood, publisher and president.
And now, the talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
That's what I like to listen to.
You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert. Here on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Winter is here again, oh Lord. Haven't been home in a year or more. I hope she holds on a little longer. Sent a letter on a long summer day. Made of silver, not of clay. Ooh, I've been running down this dusty road.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth Studio on this
Friday Eve.
Man, it's one of them crazy deals where it's a shortened week. So we're having trouble keeping up with what day of the week it is. At least I am. But all right, you reminded me it's Friday Eve. That's a.k.a. Thursday. That means we got Steve Azar coming up after the show today. He's got an interview with Irving Flores. Should be interesting for sure. Once again, Speaker of the House, Jason White, in the Element Wealth studio. An hour from now at 12:05, we will, of course, get an update on these various task force meetings, special committee meetings they've been having at the Capitol concerning education, the capital city itself and the region here in central Mississippi, the public employees retirement system, and voting. So that's what's going on there, and we'll get his take on all of those meaty topics with a particular focus on what he has indicated is his priority, and that's implementing a school choice program in the state of Mississippi. There are strong views on that issue on both sides. That's something we've talked about certainly quite a bit, and we had a great discussion, I thought, yesterday with Education Committee Chairman in the House. That would be Rob Robertson. Great discussion. If you missed that, folks, you can find that, of course, all over the various SuperTalk media sites at our YouTube site. You can really get some good stuff. Lots of clips of all the shows are published out there for you. We're on TikTok. Of course, you can replay the entire shows. They're archived at supertalkmississippi.fm. Also published as podcasts wherever you get your podcast from. So it's just another example, Rhino, of how we are a whole lot more than just live on-air radio. Quite diverse in the area of media. And we're all over the place. So check it out for sure. So the news on the economy is really interesting. I caught an article in the Wall Street Journal talking about this. we got the job market. We got reports on that this morning. It indicates the job market is getting weaker. And I think this is going to pave the way for the Fed to cut rates here this month, later on this month. I don't think we'll see any major cut. I still think it's a quarter point. But hiring has slowed. The jobs numbers came in this morning from the ADP report, and that was below expectations. So that's causing some concern, and this is what the Fed's dual mandate, is to maximize employment and achieve price stability. It's a fancy way of saying is, hey, keep the inflation at bay. But something that caught my attention, I thought was particularly interesting, the trade deficit actually increased in July, despite all the tariffs and all the other policies surrounding trade. It was really surprising to me to see that our trade gap actually rose in July. Imports rose by $20 billion, or 5.9% from June. So at this point, it doesn't appear that the tariffs are having the impact that is desired. And really, I would say there are two, maybe three goals of the tariffs. One is to address the trade disparity. Well, the numbers don't show that that's occurring, so that's a concern. And the other is just to make trading more fair. We went into that in detail yesterday. I think we used Australia as an example, that at one time, and really up until, a month or two ago, banned the import of American beef.
Yeah, so late July.
All right, so you'd have to say that was a positive impact of tariffs and just the president calling attention to these trade arrangements that we have that seem to be very one-sided in favor of our trading partners, not Americans and American companies. So that's definitely a concern, and I'm glad to see that being addressed for sure. That's something that needs to be addressed. But really one of the other goals was to revive U.S. manufacturing. So far, the opposite is occurring. Manufacturing activity is showing a little bit of improvement in August. That's just based on survey of manufacturing managers. But they also say that tariffs are pressuring their businesses, that import taxes were impacting supply chains, and just the uncertainty, because now we've got a situation where a federal court says, okay, not so fast, and we await this case getting to the Supreme Court, see what happens there. But high material costs as a result of tariffs are making it more expensive to fabricate goods here in the United States. And so it was thought that tariffs on foreign imports would spur domestic manufacturing, but that's not actually happening. So manufacturing activity is actually down, domestic manufacturing activity. And here's the other thing to keep in mind is if we do revive manufacturing in this country, then tariffs are going to decrease. So if on the one hand we're going to have higher revenues as a result of tariffs, but the goal is to reshore manufacturing, well, reshoring manufacturing is going to, of course, produce without tariffs. So domestic manufacturing eliminates the tariff because the goods don't cross the border. So that's a good thing in that we increase domestic manufacturing, but it also means, well, we're not going to collect the revenue from that. So there's a fine line in there, and there's, I think, a reasonable balance that needs to be achieved where, yeah, we're receiving some revenue from tariffs, but on the other hand, we're reshoring lots of manufacturing, and, of course, domestic goods are not subject to tariffs. So as long as you see those tariff figures rise, that means we're not reshoring manufacturing, that we're still importing a lot. It's a conflict is the only thing I'm pointing out, that if we are going to bank on this tariff revenue on a long-term basis, well, that means that manufacturing is not being reshored. If it's being reshored, then we're obviously collecting less in tariff revenue. So just some interesting dynamics going on there as a backdrop to the Fed's meeting coming up. You got the president's pressuring the Supreme Court to get the case on the docket as quickly as possible. That's news from the last 24 hours, where he, in fact, has made public statements about that. Let's get this thing resolved one way or another in the Supreme Court. And, of course, he's encouraging them to rule in favor of the tariffs he's imposed. He feels very strongly about the value of those tariffs to Americans, America, and its economy. But at this point, for what it's worth, and it's still relatively early, there
have been major reinvestments in American manufacturing that haven't had nearly enough time to come to fruition.
No, I think there's some truth to that. Whether or not that will show and move the needle and show that manufacturing is surging and increasing in this country just as an aggregate figure of production, I don't know. Still remains to be seen. I guess I'm a little surprised to see that we don't really see any of that reflected today. You would think that those that already have manufacturing capacity would have had enough time to re-engineer and reconfigure their plants to produce things that they're importing. That's not happening at this point. So, and you may be right. It just may take a while for all that to settle in. I still think there's way too much focus on manufacturing, other than for the obvious national security reasons. It's not that big of an industry as it once was, as a percent of the total GDP. Coming right back.
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
What? This is so
Awesome. On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
It's getting near dawn. When lights close the tired eyes, I'll soon be with you, my love. Give you my dawn surprise. I'll be with you, darling, soon. I'll be with you when the stars start falling. I've been waiting.
We're back. Thanks for joining us. It's Middays from the Element Wealth Studio. Lee in Stark Vegas on the C Spire text line says, Postal Union's fighting to keep 6-day mail delivery is going to finish off the post office. That's interesting take. Why is that, Lee? Is it so? Are they working 6 days doing that? And is it 40 hours?
The Sunday deliveries are done by the other carriers.
I see. I didn't know you could get Sunday delivery.
Oh, yeah.
Just normal mail? Standard mail?
Not standard mail, but packages.
I've seen
like
that, yeah. But the third parties do that. Yeah, absolutely. Seen that. Interesting. Am I right when I say the maximum take from the IRS on lottery is 25%? Yeah, there's a special rate for game winnings in both at the IRS and at the state level. For some reason, the number 23.8% sticks in my head. I used to have all that memorized when we were involved in the early days because that would come up a lot. You get a W-2G for gambling winnings. It's no different than once you exceed $600, yeah, it's 24%. But actually, I think the 24% is the withholding.
Yeah, that's just the automatic withholding,
but
flat
it's ordinary
federal
income.
Tax.
But it's ordinary income.
Yeah, so if you win a big one, you're, what is it, 687,000 for single?
Yeah, and that's when
once
you
get above that, it's what,
37? 36.9. So, but the withholding, so it's similar to the kind of the safe harbor that employers use when they pay bonuses. You just withhold a certain percentage, and both the employee and the employer are in compliance with law. Your actual taxes may be different once you square that up on your tax return, but at the point that extraordinary payment is made to an employee, they're going to take 20% off. Of course, Social Security, Medicare would apply as it normally would. And then I think at the state level, I recall that our law says 3% is just a withholding. Yeah, over 609,000, it's been indexed up now. It's 37%. Went from 36.9 to 37. But you're right. The bracket threshold for a single taxpayer, all income over 609, subject to 37%. Correct. But yeah, when you present and redeem your prize to the lottery or to a casino in Mississippi, and really across the nation is the way it works, they're going to withhold 24%. That's the safe harbor, if you will, for lotteries and gaming institutions. Once you file your taxes, however that figures into your tax liability, your actual rate could be different. But just as withholdings on your paycheck go against the liability you compute when you prepare your tax return, same thing here. The amount you paid, and you get a 1099 for that. 1099-G is what.
I don't imagine the average lottery winner has enough in write-offs to be able to get that down below what it would take to get under 37%.
Yeah, I think that's right. It's a W-2G. I said 1099-G. It's a W-2G. And, of course, the gaming institution and the lottery, just like is the case with your employer, a copy goes to the IRS, so it's sitting in their big computer waiting for you to file your tax return, and it matches that up, what you filed and what it has on record in W-2s and 1099s and other documents that are used to record income and distributions, and that's the way that works. And then you'll square up your income. Gerard, we got to bump out with some Blind Faith and Steve Winwood. We sure did. That sounded good, didn't it? It was awesome. Scott in Clinton says labor unions reward mediocrity. Well, certainly when they're implementing in their contracts protections such as, don't you go automate and get more efficient. You got to let me do this to be inefficient while you pay me, right? Unbelievable. Let's see. We were talking about earlier Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin having a discussion about achieving immortality through the continuous process of organ transplants on the C Spire text line. Organs from the Uyghurs of China? Oh, my gosh. I was trying to listen to some of that RFK Jr. hearing, but he's still got that squirrel stuck in his throat, says CC in Senatobia. Gary in the Berg says, glad to see they're making progress. He's talking about the old public municipal golf course in Jackson. It's the old Sunny Guy Golf Course, also known as the Pete Brown Golf Course and Facility. It's interesting that the play is up on the golf course, and thus revenues. It's a green fee-based can't be. I don't think you can buy a membership where you could play on an unlimited basis like you would at a country club. Rather, for each round, there's a fee. And Steve Hutton, who works for City Parks and Recreation, just testified to the city council, sharing with them that the month of June, $40,000 in revenue, biggest month they've ever had. About 4 years ago, monthly revenue was about $4,000. So that's good news there for the Pete Brown course, the Sunny Guy course. Gary, that's where I used to play before I could afford. And I started playing golf my senior year in college, and when I was home with my parents, that's where I played, at the Sunny Guy golf course. I couldn't afford a cart either. I was walking. They didn't have kickstand bags back then, so you had to carry your bags around. Rhino, what the course was known for? There's literally, I think it's Town Creek in Jackson, of course, is what it's called. And the creek itself has concrete banks in that part of town, and it goes underneath Woodrow Wilson. The golf course is split Woodrow Wilson Avenue. The golf course is split one side of Woodrow Wilson Avenue, the north and the south side, half the course roughly. And those culverts are placed at a strategic point that you have to carry to get your ball from the fairway to the green. And inevitably, if you hit in there, when you arrive, there would be kids on bicycles that would sell your ball back to you. You'd have to pay a tariff to get your ball back. True story. Let's see. Ben from Madison says, a couple of friends of mine live in Gluckstadt, and they were telling me they'll have an election this fall to vote whether or not to increase taxes in the city. Okay, so a referendum, Ben? I haven't heard that, but I take your word for it. Wouldn't surprise me. Would love to hear the speaker why he thinks the legislature is so afraid of voters placing an important issue on the ballot for the people to vote on. It's almost as if they've forgotten our Constitution explicitly calls for a working ballot initiative process. I just don't see that as being a priority if you're talking specifically, Ben, about reinstating the citizen ballot initiative process. My gosh, Rhino, how much have you and I talked about that on this program since the Supreme Court struck it down, the referendum that passed to implement a medical marijuana program. It's 21, as I recall, right? When I think the Supreme Court ruled, and that was a suit brought by Madison Mayor Mary Hawkins Butler, because the legislation or the measure, I should say, that passed in the referendum would have required all cities and counties to allow medical marijuana retailers. They couldn't prohibit it. That's the way the measure was designed and drafted, and that did pass. She argued that, I don't want to get into the details, but it has to do with the signatures collected and the number of congressional districts. And unfortunately, in that our Constitution has an error in it, and that it specifies 5 congressional districts. We only have 4, and we'd have to amend the Constitution to correct that problem, the state Constitution. So, yep, that's where we are. We're coming right back in the Element Wealth Studio.
Attention, adoring fans!
It's time for
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. That's Brian Adams. That was from the All Hit Request line. Appreciate that, Rhino. This Time. I'm trying to get the band to play that one. I like it. It's upbeat. It's got some cool drums in it. And Brian kind of has that raspy voice, very much similar to one of our lead singers, Joseph Tubb, Representative Tubb. Man, he was on fire last night, by the way. Everybody was. Man, I was so impressed. We were like, hey, this sounds pretty good. Such an improvement from that first get-together where I shook my head walking away like, I think this is a mistake. But we persevered. We kept it going, sounded good, and we've even been invited back next year to play at the Neshoba County Fair, so we didn't run off Scott Bounds, who runs the show literally over there. On the C-Spire text line, we were talking about unions and the post office earlier. I was told by a guy at my post office that they are no longer considered federal employees. Well, not exactly. They still are federal employees, and they're considered as such. What's different is that they have their separate HR system, for example, and their rules are different than the broader civil service employee complement as far as regulations around everything related to personnel, hiring, firing. Now, they do participate in the standard federal employee benefits program, the FEHB, same thing that Congress participates in, and then the Federal Employees Retirement System, FERS, as that is known. So they're more similar than they are not. What's different is that they're funded by fees they get from selling postage. They don't get an appropriation. And that's what's hurting them, because revenue is not keeping up with expenses. We're not mailing stuff. I don't think any surprise there as we once did. And so last year, and they also are dealing with the pension situation. What did they lose last year? Like $8 billion or something insane, the post office did. They have a huge problem. They also have something I've talked about a lot. They just have
$9.5 billion.
Okay, I said 8. That must have been a prior year.
Up from 6.5 the year before.
Okay. I was right in the middle. That's still a bunch of money when you start talking about billions of loss for a single entity. I'm not talking about the $7 trillion federal budget here. We're talking about the USPS. So this is definitely a concern that they are worried about. The post office itself has about $409 billion of pension and health care liabilities against assets of $290 billion. So just like all these other defined benefit programs, they are upside down. 700,000 post office workers are retired or their survivors are collecting benefits. 500,000 are employed by the post office that will eventually collect pensions in the future. It pays $10 billion, does the post office, into a pension program that it doesn't control, that being the federal employees retirement system. And like I said in the past, which I think is a reasonable suggestion to address the Social Security unfunded liability, they can only invest that money in one security, and that's those special Treasury bonds that, last I checked, are paying about 3.5% on average of all the bonds at the various maturities that are on the balance sheet, 3.5%. Where, and I think you said it the other day, I said, I think we could have knocked out this unfunded liability problem had we allowed, as W wanted to do years ago, the Social Security system to invest in assets other than just those special issue bonds, just as our state public employees retirement system does. If you look at returns, average returns on the S&P relative to returns on these federal Treasury special bonds, is no comparison. You know, that who was it that said compound interest is like the ninth miracle of the world or wonder of the world or something like that?
I think it was Einstein that said it was the most powerful thing in the universe.
Okay, so I knew it was something to that effect. And that's essentially what you'd be looking at if you were investing in private securities as opposed to just these very low risk but low return as a result treasuries. I think that would have addressed the problem. So, privatize the postal system altogether, says Darren in Jackson. Darren, it's been suggested a million times, but here's the problem, my friend. You still got this unfunded liability that you're on the hook for. And you still would have to come up with some way to pay for that. And even in privatizing it, there's some interest in that, but there's not like really strong, widespread interest because I'm not sure it's viable. And as time has progressed, it becomes less viable.
Apparently, we were both right and wrong.
Okay.
Einstein has been attributed to saying either compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world or compound interest is the most powerful force in the universe. Nobody's been able to find him saying that in any writings or books or lectures.
Well, it wouldn't surprise me that the people who seek to make the point that compound interest is really something that can produce a lot of financial benefit, because that's a math issue, they probably came up with this idea that to promote their talking point there. Hey, even Einstein said it. So, well, I apologize. I appreciate you looking it up to pass on to our audience that, okay, they really can't find that he ever said that. Because
apparently there are examples of that being said in some form or fashion before Einstein was even born.
Oh, well, that would make sense as well. Either way, though, I think it is an easy way to kind of orally, verbally demonstrate just how powerful compound interest is. And in this case, I believe it could have been used to ensure the long-term permanent viability of Social Security. I don't think there's any question about that. And there have been some folks that have gone back, you've seen this, and done the math on that. Wow, what if we had converted and allowed Social Security to invest in other than these one security they're restricted to?
Yeah, I think one of the headlines was simply, W was right.
Okay, makes total sense. But, man, the Democrats flipped out over that, didn't they? And, of course, the idea of, once again, public money, in this case your money that you're sending to Social Security, being invested in private securities. I mean, they like break out in hives when you start talking about that to the Democrats in this country. Unbelievable.
It's because Democrats believe, and it was proof positive in the conversation between Tim Kaine and Ted Cruz yesterday, Democrats believe that government is God.
That's true.
Republicans believe that our rights come from God.
It's so true. Many times you've heard me say they genuflect at the altar of climate change, race, and radical gender ideology. Those are the pillars that underpin the Democrat Party. And they continue, as you know, to lean into it. We talk about it on the program a lot, on virtually a daily basis. It's just more stuff that we see. We've talked a lot on this program about artificial intelligence and the power of it and the need to have some reasonable guardrails around it so that it doesn't get out of control. Well, something that's, I think, on the top of minds to all Americans is just crime. Certainly it is to the president because he sent the National Guard into Washington, D.C., seems to have improved the situation with respect to crime in that city rather significantly, to the point that even Muriel Bowser, the far-left mayor of the nation's capital, signed an executive order. Yeah, we're going to keep this relationship going, right?
Yeah, now there's an open letter from a council member in D.C. saying she doesn't speak for me.
Oh, my gosh. Okay, so then you want crime, and even the president says that. What's up with these Democrats? They like crime. He puts it that bluntly, that directly. He's right. He's trying to fix this problem, and they're pushing back on it. But on the other side of the break, I'm going to share with you a story from some folks who believe they could literally fully eliminate all crime. I know that sounds crazy, radical, far-fetched, way out there. And I'll explain that on the other side. And don't forget, we got Speaker of the House Jason White in the Element Wealth studio at 12:05 today.
Polyumpa, Mississippi.
Come on.
Middays with Gerard Gibert
All right, we are back.
on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
I'm going back to the country. I can't pay the rent, but I'm not completely broke. Brother, I'm badly bent. I can't understand where my money went. Well, I ain't broke, but I'm badly bent.
What in the wide world of sports is that? What?
I ain't broke, but I'm badly bent by Ricky Skaggs.
Okay. Oh man, that for a minute I thought that was the Soggy Bottom Boys. I told you we play. What is it? Constant Sorrow.
Oh yeah, the man of constant sorrow.
Yeah, Man of Constant. We play that one. I am a man of constant sorrow. Yeah. What? Have you ever seen the video? Hot damn! It's the it's the Soggy Bottom Boys. I mean, they just break out in ecstatic. Oh gosh, what a lot of fun that is. On the C-Spire text line, somebody sent us a photo of what are wiring harnesses. I remember when Packard Electric opened in Clinton. They made car components just like this. I lost a lot of school friends at West Jackson due to their parents getting hired there and moving to Clinton. Now it's a shell of what it was due to where these components are made now, which is China and Mexico. I think, I'll tell you, I responded, those are wiring harnesses, and that's what they built at that Packard Electric plant for GM, as I recall, Rhino. And they were a big customer of mine. You can imagine a facility like that, a lot of need for IT. Now, this is 25, 30 years ago. And I do remember when they reduced operations and, if not completely shut down, the factory because those factories moved to Canada, to Mexico. But again, seeking the lowest cost. The company was able to produce the same product at a much lower price point because of labor cost. Now, I dare say today, a factory to produce something like that, and I'm not even sure if we use wiring harnesses. I don't know if are they the same? Yeah. Okay, so, I mean, I know we have...
Outside of maybe a Tesla or something.
Okay, well, I mean, I know we have lots of wires that connect stuff that all have to be collapsed in. I just didn't know if the technology had changed somewhat that instead of it being like a single major wiring harness in the vehicle, or is it usually in the firewall, isn't it? Like between the firewall and the engine area? Seems like that's usually where all the wires come together because that's where all the instruments are and all the stuff around your dashboard. Now, computers all over the place and sensors that all have to be wired up. But nonetheless, where I was going with, I dare say today, could probably build a factory where you would have very few people in such a factory thinking about building something like that. That seems to be fairly straightforward manufacturing where automated systems could handle a good bit of it. And so I do think that is the future of manufacturing, and we're going to see a continuous increase in the number of factories in this country that are fully automated. In fact, if they're brought back from Canada and Mexico with the same amount of labor, that would definitely cost more money. And that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. The good thing is, yeah, the standard of living and wages in this country have risen significantly, despite what the left tells you, and more importantly, way beyond what is paid in other countries. You've looked this up for us before, where in China, like $2 a day or something? You even looked up a person in Mexico, as I recall, who works in an automobile factory, an American automobile factory in Mexico, like $40 a day or something like that. Don't you remember such a figure, right, for a worker?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Whereas here, I think we looked it up.
Even the skilled laborers in a Mexican auto manufacturing plant are making right at or right below what we would call minimum wage.
Okay. But in this country,
and that's for a skilled machinist.
I think you and I looked it up. The average pay of a line worker in an auto factory is about $60,000 a year, as I recall. I may be off a little bit, and that doesn't include all the other benefits that are lapped onto that you're going to end up having to pay and incur. And that's probably 25 to 30% of their average wages, given the sort of benefits.
Yeah, average entry-level salary is right at $58,000 a year.
$60,000. That's the base salary. That doesn't include all the other add-ons to that you don't have in those countries. So something else I think is important to share right now before we go to break is what you shared with me about the wait times for an X-ray. Tell
MRI.
them about that. MRI, okay.
Yeah, it's a guy in Canada, and he got an email back from the medical imaging place and said, "Hi, we're currently processing high volume of requests for a particular ultrasound, not MRI.
Right.
We can add you to our wait list, which is approximately 1 to 2 years long. Please let us know if you want to be added to the wait list."
1 to 2 years. 1 to 2 years. That's socialized
for an
medicine.
ultrasound.
For an ultrasound. How do you even deal with your body in the meantime?
Vets have an ultrasound.
Unbelievable.
In America.
Unbelievable. Oh, great system. We're stepping aside for Fox News and SuperTalk News. On the other side, it's the Speaker of the House, Jason White.
You're welcome to the show that challenges you to think deeply, and look beyond political posturing. You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's hour 3, the afternoon portion of Middays. We are live from the Element Wealth Studio on this
Friday Eve.
It's our pleasure to welcome now the Speaker of the Mississippi House of Representatives. That would be none other than Mr. Jason White. Mr. Speaker, good to see you, sir. Thanks for coming in.
Yes, sir. Good to see you, Gerard and Rhino. Good to be here and on a Thursday.
Exactly. So I know you're running around because even though you're not in session, you're still conducting lots of meetings engaged in business down there at the Capitol. And that's largely because right after the session, you created 4 different committees. You call them select committees, I think. Is that right?
That's right, because they're not like our normal standing committees that are named per the rules and meet during session and that sort of thing. These are out-of-session special committees, usually with one particular topic that they're laser focused on.
And in this case, these 4 committees are focused on, as you indicate, 4 different categories: the public employees retirement system, education, school choice, etc., voting, elections, and then the capital city and just the central part of Mississippi here. What we can do to revitalize that. How are those meetings going? What do you got to report?
They're going good. I guess we around the Cap, a lot of times we judge effectiveness and that sort of thing by I think I heard the guy on your show one time say, you're getting warm or close to it when you start taking the anti-aircraft and the flak and that sort of thing. So we kind of know we're over the targets now because we're starting to get that feedback and not just in our education reform and freedom committee, but in those others as well.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the Capital City one.
Yeah.
That was actually one continued from last year because they had done so much work last year. It led to 5 bills becoming legislation. None of those bills in and of themselves are life-changing, but all together and taken, those are tiny bites at a big problem. And that group had done such good bipartisan work and bringing everybody in that has a stake in what we call our capital city and metro revitalization that we wanted them to continue their work. And so now, of course, one of their focuses with the new administration and new leadership in the mayor's office is really looking at, this water and sewer issue and infrastructure and where we go from here, where they go from here and how the state can partner with them, not necessarily with an open checkbook, but with open minds about what does that partnership look like. Whether anybody likes it or not, we are invested. Mm-hmm. I think we have 175 or so Capitol Police now on the streets that have made a huge difference, whether anybody wants to admit that publicly or not. They've made a huge difference. We know it because we interact with businesses and property owners and residents on a daily basis. We don't live in a bubble, our members as they're here in Jackson, and that we hear directly from those people the difference those changes have made, including the law enforcement, including the other bills that have passed and the immediate effects. Maybe they see some of those. So that's been good for our members to see, hey, work hard, find the right policy, and you see that change. And some of it wasn't popular at the time, but now I would be remiss if I didn't tell you that most of the oxygen in the room is being consumed by the conversations around education freedom and education reform, however you want to call it these days, depending on if it's a good word or a bad word. But we're just either naive or crazy enough to say, we're going to talk about it. We're going to get all the cards out on the table. And if you're a no, why are you a no? Why do you have to be a no? If you're a yes, why are you a yes? And how do you think this looks for our state? So sometimes those conversations are good and fruitful, and sometimes they're very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
We got our House Republican caucus together last week for an entire day of door shut, hearing from folks both from D.C. and national experts in the issues surrounding early childhood education freedom. Now, those folks were from the Trump administration, so they've got an idea of what they think that looks like, even for us here in Mississippi. We also had the Speaker of the House from Tennessee, who has passed major education reforms, including universal school choice recently, just to walk through with my caucus the political battles and the pragmatic, both policy and political ramifications that come from that. It was interesting take because they have twice as many people as we do in Tennessee. They have about 1 million public school kids. We have a little less than 500,000,
mm-hmm.
but other than the numbers being slightly different, the politics are fairly similar.
I would agree.
Different demographics. Anyway, it was just interesting to see how it played out there, and it was good for my people to hear how that played out in another very close, neighbor state.
I want to first say that I think the moves made a couple of years ago with respect to the Capitol complex has produced positive benefits. I know. I just feel better when I go to the area and I see those black and white Capitol Police vehicles all over the place. That's a deterrent.
It's a deterrent
There's
in
no
and
doubt.
of itself. That's
no
right.
doubt. Just the mere presence. We're watching that play out in Washington, D.C. with the president sending in National Guard troops, and now even the mayor, the Democrat mayor of Washington, says, yeah, this really does seem to be working. Imagine that. You got guys walking around with uniforms on that mean business, and the criminals
and
tend to
think about
scatter.
it for a minute. Why would anybody be against that?
I can't imagine.
It's like you gotta really contort yourself into a pretzel to find a way to be against that.
Well, I was there in the gallery. I think I remember looking at you a couple of times when you had the mayor and his entourage. Remember that?
Staring down.
Oh, it's unbelievable. Just filled up the entire North Gallery there, just watching what was going on, and there was just so much fear mongering and just untruths that folks were even going to the podium and stating, and none of that was true.
None of it was true. But
so I think we're better off.
It comes with the territory.
Yeah.
It comes with the territory.
I get it. All right, so yesterday, I don't know if you were able to catch it, or if he shared with you, but Representative Rob Robertson, who chairs the education in the House, of course, was on and had a great conversation with him about everything education, from education choice to school district consolidation. Where do you see that going now? And I know you've brought in folks from the Trump administration. It seems like the momentum is building, that maybe some folks who were opposed are starting to change their views a bit on this.
Well, I think we are seeing that. And I've been encouraged by my House members' willingness to be open-minded. Like, that's what I've asked of them as we started down this road of considering it and talking about it, is the beauty or the ugliness of it is this: nobody else in our political circles has been willing to even talk about it. And we have some people who are, maybe licking their finger and stick it in the air and seeing which way the wind's blowing politically, but nobody's really come out and said, you know what? This is the right thing to do. Let's figure out how to do it politically and get there. So I got to commend them for being willing to trust me enough as the leader of our chamber to say, we're willing to look at this and try to figure it out if we can. And hey, it doesn't come at great political risk. Now, I've tried to remind them that, the only people that have lost their seat over this issue in other states are people that voted against it. That's what you saw play out in Texas, a very similar red state like Mississippi.
Big time.
So while the adversaries and the status quo people are very loud, they're very smart, or at least they think they are. It's really a small, loud group. When you boil it down to parents and kids, who I have to remind everybody often, parents are also taxpayers. They're the ones paying whatever bill for whatever we decide to do. They're actually paying that. When you boil it down to that, why in the world would we not leave it up to the parents? Jansen Owen was making a great point the other day, talking about, he's one of our House members from south of here, Pearl River.
The author of the open enrollment bill last year.
That's correct. And he's been one of our loudest and best champions on this issue, and I commend him for that. But he was comparing it to, so some of the naysayers are like, well, I mean, parents they're not education experts. He's exactly right. Or people that say that are exactly right. But they're also not health experts. But when their child is sick, they try to find a doctor who can get them to the right doctor, who can get them the right treatments that they need. We don't entrust that to other people. We entrust that to the parents. Parents that care enough about their child's education, they're going to find that best environment if we would just allow them to do that. And in most cases, guess what? Newsflash, it is their local public school. Right. And most parents choose that. And if it is so great, why are we afraid of the parents making that choice?
And we should say before we go to break, and I know you're aware of this, your folks have researched this, the vast majority of people, parents and students, want to stay in their public school. Almost, the one they're assigned to.
Almost to a default rate. That's correct. You're right.
We got Speaker of the House Jason White in the Element Wealth studio. We're coming right back.
Here's John, and covering the stories that matter most to Mississippians. Gerard Gibert, Middays with Gerard, SuperTalk, Mississippi.
$1976 from the original Boston album there. I was a freshman running around the campus at Ole Miss with that on my A-track, by the way. We've got Speaker of the House Jason White in the Element Wealth studio. So we were sharing a little bit of information about the momentum that seems to be building behind school choice. And one thing also we should point out is that, and I know you've talked to your members and others who will have an opportunity potentially to cast a vote on one or more measures concerning this. The President of the United States is a huge proponent of education freedom.
Gerard, he's not only a huge proponent, he has kind of put his money where his mouth is. He has not only sent his people, members of his cabinet, here to Mississippi, he invited members of the Mississippi legislature, House and Senate, Republicans, to meetings at the White House. We went in July. Those were very productive, good meetings. I can't remember if you and I have talked about that before, but the number one goal for him for Mississippi is seeing education freedom. As you know, he wants to abolish the U.S. Department of Education. He wants to return all power over K-12 education to the states. But part of that, he wants to take it that step further for us in that he wants the ultimate decision surrounding a child's education with those parents, and not with systems, but empowering families, which goes to the overall theme, you might say, of really the adopted Republican Party platform, not only on education, but just in general. These ideas about bringing common sense back to government and the accountability from the standpoint of what he calls empowering American families. And I know he didn't write our new Republican Party platform. A large group of very smart folks, conservatives, did. But I would encourage folks to go and look at it, not just to the education piece, but to the entire. I dug into it looking at the education piece and seeing that universal school choice is an adopted pillar of both the state and national Republican Party. But he kind of takes that a step further, almost to the point of pressing the issue where he got very involved. I was talking about in the Texas legislature, seeing it pass there. He issued letters of endorsement to every member of the Texas legislature who voted for it. And he did the converse to those that didn't, and those folks are no longer in the Texas legislature.
Yeah.
So I'm saying he went that far with it. Now, we hadn't been threatened in that way, but my point is he wants to see this through. And I think, folks, if nothing else, kind of like the Mississippi Senate does the Mississippi House now, if nothing else, they take our word for it when we tell them where we are on something. I think folks are that way about Trump now. When he says he's going to do something, he's very engaged on this issue. So that's not to be taken lightly, but that probably has added to the flavor a little bit of this conversation. And for folks who are nervous because of politics back home, especially from their school officials, when the President of the United States calls or the Vice President calls, you're probably taking that call and you're probably, inclined to give more than just a passing ear to it.
Oh, that's exactly right. I mean, nobody wants to be. So
that has helped our momentum. I will, and hey, our governor has been supportive. He's been very supportive. He came and addressed our caucus a week or so ago on this issue. And I thought it was very helpful, and he committed to be part of this solution going forward.
Everybody wants to know, is a special session in our future on this issue? I know you can't speak for the governor, and he certainly has the power to do that.
Certainly I can't. And your listeners are so engaged in the process. They know he teased that in a social media post not too long ago.
Yeah.
I do think it probably fits better in a special session. It allows us to focus on that and this issue not get caught up in all the other politics that go on the Capitol in any given session.
Yeah.
And I do think it was interesting to note when the Tennessee Speaker of the House was addressing our caucus, he talked specifically about they did it in a special session. They had tried it in a regular.
Okay.
And I
didn't realize
all the other politics of it. And so he mentioned this. He said it took a governor's support in his bully pulpit in Tennessee, and it took a special session to get it to remove all the other horse trading and politics out of it, where you gotta. There's no lukewarm. You're either for it or against it, and we're fixing to have a vote, and that's what it took in Tennessee. And I can see the advantages of that. And if that's where we get to, I think we would welcome that. Now again, we're still a long ways even from a bill. We are having conversations. We hope to have something kind of that I can start showing to my people in the next month or so that hey, we good here? We not good here? Where are we on this and that? There are issues in the school choice range, not only ESAs or choice or vouchers or whatever, depending on who you're talking to, it's for it or against it, what they call it. We're called the privateers. I notice the lady's name I won't mention on the air. She always, when she writes her negative post about it, she always uses the word scheme. If you say there are no schemes, there are no schemes. There are no. I also hear the big money and the profiteers. There are no profiteers. Charter schools, by definition, in Mississippi, are nonprofits.
They're public schools.
All of our private schools in the state are all nonprofits. They're private. They're private, certainly, but most of them have nonprofit status. Even now, all of them don't, but they're private and nonprofits in the way that I can promise you, I've served on those school boards before. They're barely, they're struggling to make ends meet.
Right.
They're not. There's no Cadillacs out there other than a few of our metro private schools that you see who do very well.
Man.
But we've got to keep the conversation. And I remind our caucus members about this. If you start with it's all about the child, and it is about a child. It is about a child's education. Now, certainly there are other factors in the equation, like school districts and your local elected officials and your school board and your teacher. Like, all these other things are factors. I'm not forgetting that. But those are just factors. The deal is about the kid and the family. And if you start there and work the problem out from there, I think you get to a good place for Mississippi families when it comes to offering them some real choices in their child's education.
And Rob Robertson emphasized that point very, very effectively yesterday as well, that it's about the child, and we tend to overlook that's what this is about. We think about it from an adult perspective, honestly, and what we're trying to achieve. You've heard Mr. Speaker, you've heard all the various objections. What do you say to those who say, for example, well, gosh, they're going to flood our schools, we don't have enough capacity, and also they're going to bring down our grading, and that's going to affect our property values?
All right. That particular red herring is directed at the idea of open enrollment or public-to-public transfer.
Right.
A couple of glaring things right out of the gate. Number one, we have public-to-public transfer now. It goes on every day. I was speaking to a group, the Lee County Republican Women, Tuesday night this week. After I finished talking, opened it up for questions. The first question, a lady said, this sounds like what my granddaughter does. And she named the school district where she lives. She got a release from that school district. She got accepted at the Tupelo City School District. Her granddaughter goes to Tupelo and pays, I think, $1,000 a semester.
There's a tuition.
Yeah, there's a tuition.
For the local, to cover the local portion.
But so there's an issue right there where open enrollment was allowed and did work. And for some people, they'll say, we already have it. Schools can do it now. Yeah, but your home district has to release you.
It's pretty rare, though.
It's very rare.
Yeah.
It's either
I'm surprised that you found an incident, an example.
Well, what you tend to find is that's somebody that's politically connected or influential in the community in a way that they know who to call and have influential school board members here in both. And you got to have it in both places.
Yeah.
Not just one. You got to get released and get accepted.
That's right.
All right. What Jensen's Owens bill did that you mentioned earlier on open enrollment or portability,
yep,
public to public transfer, it just removed the handcuffs or the lock for the home district. It didn't force anything on the receiving district. They can still say no. They don't even have to articulate a reason. Now, they can, if they want on the front end, to say, we're not taking any outside district students because we're at capacity. Then say that.
Yeah.
Or you can say we can take 10. I don't know where that got lost in translation, that this idea that a busload of 100 thug kids, mind you, are going to load up and all show up on the doorstep at one of our suburban area schools outside of Jackson. That's
never happened anywhere it's been implemented either.
It's not going to happen. But let me say this.
Okay.
If there is a mom in Jackson Public Schools, if there's a single mom somewhere that wants something better for their kid, I don't know what that better is. Maybe it is a neighboring public school district. Maybe it's a private school district. I'm for empowering her to the point of parent engagement where that just might work for that kid. Who could be against that? Articulate a real reason to not be for that. It's tough for anybody to do.
I agree. Speaker of the House, Jason White, when we come back, want to dig into the issue of school district, specifically consolidation. Not to be confused with school consolidation, school district consolidation. On the other side of the break, we're with the Speaker of the House, Jason White.
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
It is on.
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth Studio. We're chatting with Speaker of the House, Jason White. So one of the objections I hear, Mr. Speaker, is we need to address the bloat in the expense of operating many public school districts in the state. And perhaps that starts with some district consolidation. And heck, I talked to you last year during the session. You approached me in the hall. I don't think I'm saying anything out of school here. You said, Gerard, we're going to work on a serious look at consolidating districts. And I actually said, I think there are going to be some concerns about that, because you had talked earlier about let's just do one per county. Was kind of an idea.
I think that should be our goal.
Okay.
Now, I'm not so naive that I think that's going to happen.
Okay.
Especially overnight. I think that could be our goal. We're at 132 now. I think 100 is probably a reasonable goal if we could get to 100 school districts. Now, I understand immediately you're going to have people say, "Well, that's all fine, but not for ours."
Not mine.
Here's why. And again, we're not talking about schools. I'm talking about school districts.
Correct. Not schools.
And it won't save $400 million. I'm not purporting that. But I think what it does is it pools resources and brain power throughout the state that I think even MDE, and I'm not their spokesman, and they don't want me to be. I'll let them articulate their position on this issue. But I think even they would agree on some level that there is a leadership crisis in education, period. Not just in our state, but everywhere. Folks are going into other fields that maybe used to chose the profession of education and administration and all that. And so when you got 132 school districts, guess what? You got 132 superintendents, and you got 132 everything else.
And the rest of the organization chart that cascades out from that. And there's a high fixed cost, whether you got one school or 100 schools.
That's
you got
right.
A high fixed cost to operate a district.
Right out of the chute, you got that. And so I do think it's not only worthy of the conversation, it's worthy. We wanted to task MDE with doing it and say, look, we're going to get the politicians out of it. All we're saying is that by 2033, we want to be at 100 school districts. And MDE, you go implement whatever policies you think will get there. And if you need legislation for it, we'll back you up and do that. And so that's kind of where the conversation, that's kind of where we've tried to go that route to maybe get some of the volatile politics of it, because there's no denying in most of our, especially our rural communities, the school district is the largest employer. It's just the most popular. It's got the history, and it kind of still holds some rural places together that have otherwise lost all their industry. The landscape has changed dramatically from an economic standpoint, and folks are moving away. But that school is still there, and that gives communities something to rally around. I'm not here to talk about, I'm just saying you could keep the school and just not have these multiple big school districts. In addition, in high number of those, you can still keep the school if the school makes sense. And I think that's part of the beauty of school choice. If you allow it, we'll find out where the great schools are, because people are drawn to those. It's just like a good movie or a good restaurant. The consumer,
word gets around.
Consumer will tell you, like, you don't have to, we don't have to have Barney and 4 other detectives to find out. They'll tell you with their pocketbook and their interest. And like you hear my preacher said last Sunday, let me see your cell phone. And I can decide what your 3 highest priorities are within about 5 minutes. And you know what? He's about right. He can look at your email, your photos, and your phone calls and conversations. We'll find out what's important to you.
Yeah.
And it's kind of that way with education. If we leave it up to the parents, we'll find out. We'll find out real quick. And again, I think people will be able to look back a few years from now if we get some real school choice and say, you know what? Only less than 10% chose. So that means public schools are great. I agree. Most people prefer that. I'm simply saying for those that are trapped in some bad situations for their child, it may be great for every other child, but not for their child for whatever reason. Let's give them a choice. The sky will not fall. The world will not end. Our great schools will be fine. Our failing schools will have to up their game to keep their customers, if you will. And that's kind of the beauty of school choice.
And of course, the typical refrain, as you well know, from the public school opponents, I would say, to school choice is, well, they just need more money, right? It's always the response.
No. Well, first of all, we have given them more money. We have funded public school at historic levels to the point of this past session, the new student funding formula, the Inspire formula, was fully funded for its second year of existence, so it equals the number of times MAAP was fully funded in its 27-year existence. Just in 2 years, we've equaled the number of fully funded times. Historic levels. You almost didn't see an article about, are they going to fully fund education? Because we did it, so they couldn't talk bad about us. Now, one of the Mississippi Today folks 2 months later wrote an article and said, oh, yeah, they fully funded education. It's almost like just don't look over here in the corner, because guess what? They actually put their money where their mouth is again. Money is not the we're funding plenty now. Now, are there some districts that struggle because of tax base has moved away?
The local portion.
The local portions, there are issues. I acknowledge that. You're going to see in this school reform, in this education reform package, some pointed teacher pay raises and incentives to get teachers to places where there are shortages, and especially in our underperforming districts. That's where we want to direct our, if there are any new resources to that, that's what we want. They're going to be pointed and directed with outcome-driven factors there.
I think that makes sense. So the strategy you mentioned earlier about let's just empower the Department of Education, the Board of Education, and the department and the folks that work there to come up with a plan to achieve this consolidation. How's that received? That seems like a good plan to me, taking politics out of it.
It's been very good conversations. Now, you've got the issue of elected school boards, and the other thing that our MDE leaders want is to be able to, we've got some school boards, this may surprise you a little bit, that maybe don't operate exactly right.
Right.
And there are issues about, who attends the meetings, what are the qualifications, so they wanted to kind of get in the weeds on that. And then now you're getting into a duly elected public official and what right does MDE or even Jason White have to question somebody else who got elected by the same folks that elected me.
Sure.
And so, we've got to be careful about that part, and so we're trying to iron that out as they wanted to see. They wanted to have some oversight, if you will, over their school boards. Okay. And so we're trying to there's some subtle political nuances there that we've got to work through as we figure out what that looks like. Rob is our chairman of education in the House, is adamant that we get some reform when it comes to this large number of school districts we have. And again, folks, we're not talking about consolidating schools. We're talking about districts. We're talking about admin. And that's not a shot at our admin. It's just we've got too many. We've got more than most other states who have 5 times the students. We can do better there. That's one more positive step for Mississippi taxpayers. And our kids, we can do better there and direct resources to the classroom where they should go.
And in some cases, as you know, there are more back office administrative resources in a poor performing district than there are in a high performing district.
It is, and if you look at a lot of our public school spending, what you've seen grow more than as a percentage is the admin side of it. And we can argue about the reasons for that. And yes, they disproportionately track to the underperforming much more so than to the high-performing districts.
No doubt. Seems like we ought to overlay the best model and sort of make that a standard.
That's exactly right. And I tell folks one of our best districts in the state is DeSoto County. All of those schools up there, and guess what? They have one school district.
One district.
They have lots of high-performing schools inside of it. They have one superintendent.
And a growing county. I mean, the enrollment continues to grow because folks are moving into the county.
And I think I believe I'm not sure. I think it's Hernando, maybe. $90 million brand new high school sitting right there.
$90 million. Yes. It's beautiful, too. So to those who say, wow, all these superintendents across Mississippi and a lot of the related staff just seem to be unnecessary and overpaid. You know, we have a lot of folks that make a lot of money in these positions. That's not actually controlled by the legislature.
That's not controlled by the legislature. And you won't hear me beating those ladies and gentlemen up over what they make or don't make, because again, I think if we could consolidate that a little bit and then let it be about free market and choice and introduce that into our education system, I think all of that starts taking care of itself.
I do too.
But again, it comes back to the taxpayer and what they're willing to foot the bill for or not. And when you combine that with parent power and parents being in charge of their child's education, I think the best results follow that. We're now surrounded.
Yeah.
We're now surrounded by states that allow it.
We're a big, very obvious white dot sitting right there in the middle of the region, and hopefully we get something done there. But appreciate you coming in. Appreciate the conversation and, of course, your efforts and those of the members of our legislature for all they do. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Gerard. Thank you for the opportunity. Always good to be here.
Yes, sir. We're coming right back. Final segment on Middays is next.
Middays with Gerard.
Good for America. Good for fans of justice and truth. Good for us.
SuperTalk Mississippi.
This is what we stand for.
We are back in the Element Well studio. We certainly appreciate Speaker of the House Jason White for joining us and sticking with us, Rhino, for 3 segments. Really do appreciate that. And Rob Robertson yesterday, chairman of the Education Committee, for an entire hour. So we're blessed in that respect. Good conversation. Appreciate that. You can see that the momentum is building, yet there are still objections. I personally think that many of those objections are not grounded in fact and reality. And the Speaker knows that, and he's got, as you can tell, great command of the data and the stats and the facts. I mean, so I guess what I want to say, Rhino, is this ruining Florida? No. Florida's booming. We would like to be Florida with respect to the economic growth, population growth, all the above that they have experienced. Is it going to kill Tennessee? Has it killed Arkansas? No. Iowa? No. Now, they like to point to Arizona as having some budgetary issues as a result of universal school choice, which means that the state issues vouchers to private school families. And that would be the case here in Mississippi as well. And that is something we should certainly consider. I've said that before. It's about $350 million. But we're running $500 million surpluses. This is not something that I would recommend as far as that part of it, that aspect of it. And by the way, past legislation hasn't either. Do it immediately. It's all been phased in. And maybe it's a portion of it. And we see how that goes, and we work towards the full amount of the state allotment to a child. That's not a reason not to do it. You point to one state out of 18, and yes, they had to do a little rework after that happened. But there's also, if you dig into it, and I have done this recently, there's more, as you can imagine, there's more sides and dimensions to that issue. Arizona's problems weren't 100% because of that. Not at all. As far as their state budgetary problem. They want to tell you it is, but they corrected that and fixed it. They're still going full bore universal school choice. Arkansas had a great phased-in implementation. I thought it was well designed. It was the top issue priority for Sarah Huckabee Sanders, the governor of Arkansas, when she was elected. Got it done. You know it's a big issue for the president. So it is a reasonable question, is it not? Okay, Republican legislators in Mississippi, how do you explain your dissension with the president on this issue? Is that not a reasonable question? Because you're all about him, and you'd love to have his support and endorsement, but you are completely at odds with him philosophically and practically on this issue. How do you explain that? I don't think they can, honestly. But nobody's calling them out on that.
And they haven't had to explain it because it just gets killed by Delbert's puppet.
Unfortunately. And where's he? I'll extend the invitation for the umpteenth time again. Senator DeBar, please come on and talk to us, man. And you know it will not be a hostile environment. We just want to have a conversation. Just like we
because I don't do the
interviews. You'll promise to be quiet during.
Yeah, I'll be quiet.
and
I'll even get him set up.
Exactly. Oh, the free SuperTalk water you can drink. Right? Serious though, come talk to us about it.
Because he doesn't have a good answer other than just pure partisan politics.
Well, that's a shame because that's what people are sick of. They really are. We got lots of texts. I apologize we couldn't get to him today, but for a good reason. We had Speaker of the House on. He's a major part of the lawmaking equation, obviously, in the state of Mississippi, and he's driving these issues. And I'm, for one, am grateful for that. And I know there are a litany of objections. My gosh, how many times do we have to continue to respond to those objections? And as you point out, none of them are really good. None of them are good. And all
very few, if any, have actually taken the step to apply a little second-order thinking and think through what they're actually arguing. They're just regurgitating talking points from their quote-unquote team.
That's ridiculous. Bub in Starkville, he echoed our sentiments. He said, Delbert, the Democrat is against the parents. You, Mr. Speaker, and Trump on this issue. I hope he changes his position, but I don't think he will. Nathan would be a great interview for y'all, says Gary in the Berg. This is Nathan Buckaloo at the Baptist Hospital. We'll have to check that out. No child should have to attend an inferior school because of their parents' financial success. That's just a waste all the way around. Not really sure what that means, Rhino, but we're out of here today. Back tomorrow. Stay safe and God bless.
Lace up your tennis shoes and join us in Greenwood on September 20th for one of Mississippi's oldest road races. The 45th Annual 300 Oaks Road Race has something for everyone. Visit www.300oaks.com to register. Paid for by Greenwood CBB and Chamber of Commerce.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.